With that auspicious beginning, my name is Debbie Young. I'm the chair of the Washington State Transportation Commission, and you're attending our virtual public input session tonight, where we'll be reviewing tolling options and considerations for the new SR 509 and SR 167 expressways. And following a presentation, we'll be taking public comment. The meeting tonight is being recorded. And if you're engaging in this meeting from your car, we encourage you to pull over and park and do so safely. The Washington State Transportation Commission is made up of 7 members. And I'd like to introduce the members that are with us now. Some are still trying to join. I've already introduced myself. Vice Chair Restucci.
Good evening, Madam Chair, and welcome everyone. Jim Restucci, Commissioner from Yakima County, serving as Vice Chair.
And Commissioner Fukai.
Good evening, Kelly Fukai, Commissioner from Spokane County.
And Commissioner Grant.
Hello, Nicole Grant, and I'm a commissioner based in King County.
Commissioner Batra.
Good evening. I'm Shiv Batra, Commissioner from King County also.
I don't see Commissioner Baldwin yet. I think she is still experiencing some technical difficulties with our link. And Commissioner Jennings, I believe, is also still trying to attend. So we may have 2 more commissioners joining us soon. And with that, I'm going to hand the meeting over to the Vice Chair, who's a member of the Tolling Committee and very familiar with the issues before us tonight, to run the meeting. So Commissioner Restucci, you are muted.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started with the first item on the agenda, or second item on the agenda, which is the tolling the Puget Sound Gateway Expressway. And Carl, I believe you are first up.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair Restucci. Appreciate that. My name is Carl C. I'm the Deputy Director for the Transportation Commission, and I'll get us underway with the presentation. We're also joined by John White, the Program Administrator for the Puget Sound Gateway Program, and he will be speaking to some of these slides in the presentation as well. So if we can pull up the presentation. There it is. Great. Before we get started, I'll walk through some meeting operations and our expectations around how to provide questions, and also how we'll manage some public comment later on in the meeting today. If you do wish to provide comments to the Commission, and we'll have a public comment period following the presentation and following some responses to questions, please put your name in the Q&A box that will be found at the bottom of your screen, and we'll call on you during that public comment period. If you have questions but do not wish to speak, you can put your questions in the Q&A box, also found the same Q&A box at the bottom of the screen, and we'll respond to them following the presentation. So if you have questions that come up during the presentation, feel free to put those in the Q&A box, and we'll work to address the questions or the topics during the Q&A session that will follow the presentation. And finally, please do keep your questions and comments to the topic of toll rate setting for the Puget Sound Gateway Expressway facilities. That is the subject of the meeting here today. And certainly, as we would always ask, please keep your comments and questions respectful to the participants here today, so we can have a formal meeting. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Carl. And I believe we're joined by John White, Program Administrator for the Puget Sound Gateway Program. John, are you here?
Yes, I am, Vice Chair.
Did you want to say anything, or?
I'll introduce myself. My name is John White. I'm with WashDOT, and I am the Program Administrator for the Puget Sound Gateway Program. And it's my pleasure to be here in support of this toll rate setting process.
Wonderful. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, John.
Okay, Carl, so we'll move on to public comment.
No, Jim, sorry, Commissioner Restucci, we have a presentation to walk through first, and then we'll do some Q&A, and then public comment will follow.
Oh, okay, understand.
I'll take it from here for a bit and work through it. Appreciate that. This slide is just to provide you an overview of the Transportation Commission. Chair Young walked through a bit we did introductions this evening regarding the commissioners, but just to emphasize, the Washington State Transportation Commission is an independent 7-member body of citizens appointed by the governor for 6-year terms, 3 from east of the mountains and 4 of the west, from the west of the mountains. And we also have the WSDOT secretary and the governor's office representative serving as non-voting members. Here today and on this commission from the region of the Gateway facilities, we do have Commissioner Batra and Commissioner Grant, both from King County. Importantly, a key role for the Transportation Commission relevant for our work here today is to be the state tolling authority. In that role, the commission adopts toll rates and policies for each of our toll rate facilities, as well as ferry fares for state ferries. Next slide. So being here today, you certainly have chosen to be involved in being engaged around the toll rates for the Puget Sound Gateway facilities. But as you may know, there are numerous ways in which we are engaging in order to support opportunities to learn about the tolling options under consideration and to provide comment. That includes the online open house that's accessible from the Commission's website listed here on the slide. This online open house opened on March 24th and will continue to this Sunday on April 6th. There's opportunities there to dive a little deeper into the topics around that are under consideration for this these facilities, as well as opportunities to provide comment on that open house. Of course, the virtual tolling public input meetings, one of which is here tonight, but we also have a follow-up tolling public input meeting tomorrow, April 2nd, from 12 to 1:30 to provide a different time for people to engage. Next, we have written public comment opportunities. You can submit written public comment, for example, through our commission's website, and we'll be accepting comments through at least June 10th. And finally, the commission will have a public hearing and adoption of toll rates and policies for these facilities at the commission's June commission meeting on June 17th and 18th. This will follow the selection of a preferred toll rate and policy option at the commission's April commission meeting on April 16th. That will be taking place in Bellevue. Next slide. So with that set up, I will pass this to John to provide you an overview of the Puget Sound Gateway program.
Thanks, Carl. Appreciate it. Again, my name is John White. I'm the program administrator for the Gateway program, and I'm going to provide a very brief and high-level overview of the Gateway program and our delivery status as it relates to the context here of toll rate setting. A little bit about the Gateway program itself. We are tasked to complete the 2 missing links in the Puget Sound highway network, and those are connecting the SR 509 corridor in South King County from where it ends at South 28th Street in SeaTac over to I-5, along with making a number of improvements through the I-5 corridor. And then down in the 167 corridor in North Pierce County, we are similarly connecting SR 167 from where the freeway ends today in Puyallup at SR 161 at Meridian over to I-5, and then across I-5 over to the Port of Tacoma and downtown Tacoma. And again, similarly making some improvements to I-5 as we do that. The Gateway program is providing essential connections between both the ports of Tacoma and Seattle with I-5 and the distribution centers that they rely on to move freight efficiently within the Puget Sound. We're overall tasked with improving the movement of people and goods more reliably throughout the Puget Sound through multiple modes of transportation. And then lastly, through this investment, our goal is to enhance the state's freight-related economy and the economic competitiveness of it by connecting the state's largest ports to those key distribution centers. Next slide. A bit about the Gateway approach to delivering the Puget Sound Gateway program. We have the two corridors that I mentioned, SR 509 and SR 167. Each of them are, the delivery of each is divided up into 2 stages, and then within those stages, for the most part, we have a stage 1A, an A and a B substage. But essentially, delivery of each corridor is under 3 contracts, with the exception of 167, which actually has a 4th contract. A little bit about the status of SR 509. The first stage, 1A, is complete and open to traffic. The work going on right now in the I-5 corridor is building the first mile of the SR 509 Expressway. That's under construction, will open to traffic here this summer. And then the stage 2 of SR 509, which completes the last 2 miles of Expressway, is under construction as we speak. So the entirety of the SR 509 corridor is under construction. In the 167 corridor, the stage 1A project was complete a few years ago. And we are really focused on our stage 1B contract, which builds the western 2 miles of Expressway from I-5 over the port of Tacoma and downtown Tacoma. That one's expected to open to traffic next fall in the fall of 2026. And then for stage 2 of 167, we've divided that up into 2 different projects and contracts. A stage 2A, which is at the Puyallup end of the corridor, building the improvements from SR 161 Meridian up to around SR 410 in Sumner. And then we have a stage 2B, which will be our final expressway contract in the Gateway program, that's expected to begin construction in 2026, and will build the piece between Puyallup and Fife and the I-5 interchange. Last project in the overall Gateway program is a fish barrier mitigation project known as the Clear Creek project that's expected to begin construction somewhere between 2026 and 2028. Next slide. A little bit about how Gateway is funded. Our predominant funding source is state funding. We have $2.3 billion in state funding, but as you see in the description below that in the upper right, we do have quite a bit of that is federal, what we call discretionary funds that are provided to the state that have been allocated to the Gateway program. You'll see right below that a tolling bubble. We have $180 million in toll funding that has been assumed within the legislative budget out of $340 million in toll bonding that's been authorized. We have a almost $74 million federal competitive infra grant. And then we had a legislative requirement for $130 million in local contributions from our local governmental partners in both corridors. And as of this past year, we've met that goal and then exceeded it and standing a little bit over $142 million in local contributions. Down the lower right-hand corner, you will note that we do have a funding gap to complete the last projects in the Gateway program. That has been an active conversation with the governor's office and the legislature as we've completed the 2024 estimate updates and considered risks and uncertainties in the construction market. Next slide. So tolling has been contemplated for quite a number of years in these 2 corridors, going back about 15 years in the first SR 509 toll feasibility study. You'll see that there's been a number of iterations here across the years, increasing in level of detail, culminating in what is referred to as a level 3 traffic and revenue study here that was completed here in 2024 going into 2025. And that's the level of analysis required to both support the rate setting process here today, as well as the issuance of toll bonds through the Office of the State Treasurer. Next slide. A little bit about the toll points and the tolling approach in these corridors. These new expressway corridors are 4-lane corridors that are tolled in all lanes, and the tolls vary by time of day. In the 509 corridor, there's one toll point that is west of I-5, but prior to the 24th, 28th Avenue corridor that accesses the SeaTac International Airport from the south. The only tolled portion of the corridor is the new expressway from South 28th Street in SeaTac over to I-5. The existing SR 509 corridor, both to the north and to the south down in Federal Way and in Pierce County, those segments of 509 are not tolled. So it's only this connection from where the existing corridor ends, freeway ends over to I-5 that is tolled. You'll see down at the bottom that the first segment, that first mile, opens up in October of 2025. At least that's the initiation of tolling. It will open up initially to traffic here this summer ahead of that. And then the completion of SR 509 will happen in the fall of 2028, where we get to full revenue service with the entire corridor open to traffic. In the 167 corridor, there are two toll points, one to the west of I-5 for that 2-mile segment from I-5 over to the Port of Tacoma, and one to the east of I-5 within Fife, that's east of I-5, but west of Valley Avenue. And that segment is tolled from SR 161 Meridian Avenue over to the Port of Tacoma, with the existing 167 that continues up to the north and up towards 405, being tolled through a different approach, separate than this expressway. The first segment, as I mentioned previously, of 167 opens up here next fall, with tolling expected to begin in that western segment by December of 2026. And then the full corridor tolling and corridor completion would happen by the fall of 2029. Next slide. And I think, Carl, at this point, it goes back to you.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that. So next, I'll provide an overview of the toll rate options that are under consideration. I'll start with this slide that's similar to what John just spoke to, but really to hone in on where what we're looking at for the next steps for tolling. So to emphasize, tolling will only be applied to the newly built expressways. So no portion of the existing 509 and SR 167 will be tolled. As we move forward here, tolled expressways on 509 and 167 will manage traffic and help fund construction and ongoing maintenance of those roadways. Tolling on the first portion of SR 509, as John noted, is expected to begin in October of 25, and that's the 1-mile portion from Interstate 5 up to 24th Avenue South, with access there to the airport. Tolling on the SR 167 expressway west of I-5, connecting the Port of Tacoma to I-5, is expected to begin in December of 2026. And importantly, the Commission will adopt toll rates for both these facilities and the other remaining segments together here in June of 25. So this coming June. Next slide. So this slide is really to show you the range of different options that the Commission is currently considering as they move forward with rate setting on the 509 and 167 expressways. Through the analysis process, there have been some toll rates that have been set, that have been determined as being the rates to consider on 509 and 167. And then there is some options here I want to highlight. The next slides I walk through will go into more detail about each of these columns. A couple of the two areas where we are in particular, the Commission is in particular considering different options, is one around the 3+ axle vehicle toll rates, considering either a multiplier of the 2-axle toll rate or having the same toll rates applied to 3+ axle vehicles as the 2-axle vehicles that will be used in the facility. And again, I'll touch on that more here in a moment. And then in terms of the low-income discount, looking at either a 50% discount for low-income qualifying households on the SR 509 expressway specifically, or taking a system-wide approach that would have a low-income discount, a system-wide low-income program approach that would begin with the Puget Sound Gateway Expressway facilities as the first of a set of facilities that may have that discount in place. Again, I'll touch on each of those here in a moment. Next slide. So to begin with the toll rates, this slide here is showing the daily SR 509 expressway toll rates. So by daily, saying these will be these would be in place 7 days a week, weekdays and weekends. As directed, the toll rates for SR 509 are variable, as in they change. They have a set rate by the hour. As you can see, these rates for 509 will range between $2.40 at the highest and $1.20 at the lowest. A distinction here is that there is also different rates by direction. And the time of day in which they differ is during the peak hours. So the northbound rates will be at $2.40 during the morning peak hour. And you see that in the light green. And the evening, in the southbound toll rates will have the peak rates during the evening commute, where you see that reaching $2.40. This is the first time this will be the only facility in which we have this variable by direction, but it is something that has been identified as being supportive of managing traffic on these facilities. Next slide. Similarly, these are the daily SR 167 proposed expressway toll rates. Again, here we have the eastbound and westbound variation for the SR 167 facility that will be open east of I-5. So that'll be from the Puyallup to I-5 section. And again, here we have the peak hours being the time of when it would differ by direction. And so for eastbound, you have the peak rates at $3 during the evening. And for westbound, those peak rates will be at $3 during the morning. For SR 167 west of I-5, we have the $1 toll rates at all times, and that is in both directions. Next slide. So moving to the 3-axle vehicle toll rates, we have this chart will shows you how those rates will differ from the base 2-axle vehicle toll rates. So when I speak to 3-axle vehicle toll rates, think about semi-trucks, vehicles towing a trailer, or large buses that have the 3 axles on it, so like the touring buses. As you can see here, we have on the column to the left, you have the base 2-axle vehicle rates that are applied on either the 509 or 167 expressways. And then coming across, you see how the rates differ for a vehicle of 3 axles or 4 axles on up to 6 or more axles. And so the dollar toll rate, for example, for that would be in place for west of I-5 on 167 for a 2-axle vehicle would be $1.50, for a 3-axle vehicle $2, for 4 $2.50 for 5-axle, and $3 for 6 on up. This is consistent. The approach taken here is consistent with how toll rates for 3+ axle vehicles are applied on each of the other Washington State toll facilities on which such vehicles are allowed to operate. Next, I have a slide. Be that this is a point of consideration for the commission as they move forward on this rate setting. Just a few more points to consider in regards to the 3+ axle vehicle rates. First, regardless of the toll rates, the expressways are expected to significantly attract both truck and auto trips, shifting them off local facilities and improving operations for all users. A couple of trade-offs is to consider that not including the higher toll rates for 3+ axle vehicles only slightly increases the number of trucks on the expressways without an expected change to traffic operations or overall performance on local or regional facilities. From a revenue perspective, including the higher 3+ axle toll rates would increase net revenues by about 10% on both expressways in support of the revenue uses of those revenues that we identified earlier in this presentation. Next slide. Next, and going through the table of different policy considerations, toll rate escalation. So for both the 509 and 167 expressways, it's proposed that toll rates would increase starting July 1st, 2030, annually by 2.15%. That would translate to about a 5-cent increase per year initially on those facilities. The intent of this toll rate escalation, as identified in statute, is to have toll revenues keep pace with inflation in support of operations and maintenance costs for the facilities. Toll escalation would be subject to annual review and approval by the Transportation Commission before taking effect. And that approach of having the annual review and approval is similar to how we currently approach toll rate escalation that takes place on the SR99 tunnel facility up in Seattle. Next slide. So next, the commission has identified, as noted, is considering two approaches to how to approach a 50% discount for low-income individuals using the gateway facilities. One, as directed by the legislature, the WashDOT worked to develop a scenario to propose to the commission to assess a geographic-based low-income tolling approach specific to the 509 expressway. This approach would apply a low-income discount for residents living in zip codes within 1 mile of the SR 509 completion project corridor. However, some concerns about the geographic-based low-income approach include the program costs and complexity required to manage residency information, so where people are living from, say, 1 year to the next. And while it provides benefits to local residents, other low-income drivers who may use a facility regularly would not receive the discount. So an alternative to that the commission has been so far working to develop is a system-wide low-income program that would provide a 50% low-income discount to qualifying drivers without the requirement to be within a certain geographic distance from the facilities. This program would begin with the Puget Sound Gateway Expressways in about December of 2026, which would be about 6 months or so later than it would be for the 509 specific facility. But some benefits would be that the eligibility would not be based on where the driver lives. Participants would receive a discount on those tolled facilities for which the low-income program is offered. So initially that would be the 509 and 167 expressways. But then as we bring forward new facilities, such as potentially the I-5 bridge over the Columbia River, the discount would also apply to qualified individuals on those additional facilities. Existing facilities may be considered in the future, but as noted here, existing facilities that are currently tolled will be considered as toll rate changes come up. And so that would be a decision but on a facility-by-facility basis that the Transportation Commission would need to consider and adopt before adding those facilities. Next slide, please. So with that, I'll walk you. Those slides have now walked you through the different policy considerations, rate setting and policy considerations before the commission and before the public here for the Puget Sound Gateway facilities. This time we have time for questions and answers. So if you have not, at this point in time, if you do have questions, you can put them in the Q&A box, and we'll provide some time here to provide some responses.
Thank you, Carl. We do have a few questions. So the first one's from Anne LaCroix, says, why is there a funding gap? Was the funding reduced or did the cost increase, and why?
John?
Carl, would you like me to address that? So
Sure.
The scope did not change for Gateway. What the short answer would be that with the initiation of the pandemic, Washington State, as well as the rest of the nation, saw construction costs, heavy civil construction in particular go up dramatically. You know, the costs of materials and labor and equipment, along with a lot of supply chain disruption. And unfortunately, what's happened here is that while we're a number of years out from that initial shock and the escalation inflation was far and above normal historical norms, what we've seen is those costs have, while in some cases, in some types of materials have come down a bit and normalized a bit, much of it is still far, far above what has been historical norms. And so going forward and completing the Gateway program, we do a really comprehensive risk and uncertainty analysis and estimate update based on, specific market conditions that are expected through completing the program. And that's what led us to identifying the funding need to complete the program.
Okay, thank you, John. Next question is, once the first toll rates are set in June, how often will the rates be reassessed?
Sure, I can speak to that. The commission will need to, on an annual basis, have feedback say from the state treasurer's office, particularly when there is bonding that goes forward to ensure that rates are meeting financial requirements. So at that level, there should be annual review. There would intend to be annual review of rates to ensure that they're meeting financial requirements. Particular review would take place before the applying new rates, before the opening of a new segment, to ensure that rates continue to meet those financial obligations as well as those requirements that are expected. If we're moving forward, say, for example, with the system-wide low-income program, that would be in conjunction with the opening of the, intended to be in conjunction with the opening of the SR 167 Port of Tacoma to I-5 segment. And so that would be the review of toll rates ahead of opening of that facility would include any potential impacts or reassessing any impacts of a low-income program taking effect as well. So there's those options. We'll have an annual opportunity to take a look at that. And again, also as noted, when toll rate escalation is proposed to begin in 2030, that increase of 2.15% each year would need to be approved following review of the financial requirements by the Transportation Commission.
Thank you, Carl. Next is, our map doesn't show 188th to the Kent Valley. Is any of that tolled from the end of SR 509, S509?
Carl, would you like me to help take a shot at
Sure thing,
that?
John.
Yeah, so as we mentioned in the presentation, the only part of 509 that's tolled is the new expressway between South 188th Street and I-5 in both directions. We do have a connection down into the Kent Valley that's part of the SR 509 corridor improvements along I-5, where there is a connection from I-5 now down to down Veterans Drive, down into the center of the Kent Valley and where a lot of the warehouse and distribution centers are and downtown Kent. That section is not tolled, so you can access that connection to the Kent Valley from I-5 without having to pay a toll. If you're coming from the north, heading down 509, wanting to access the Kent Valley using that route, then you would pay a toll on the way there. Hopefully that makes sense. So in general, you have many opportunities to access the Kent Valley that exist today, as well as some new ones where you wouldn't have to pay a toll.
John, I think there's a similar question for a different piece from an anonymous attendee asking, I joined a bit late, but will there be a toll for 509 North from 128th to 99? And
So if I'm understanding that right, and I apologize if I'm not understanding right. So at 128th, that would put you in Burien on existing SR 509. There would not be a toll at that location. If you headed south from 128th on 509 and past South 188th Street in SeaTac, that's when you would be subject to a toll if you proceeded past that point towards I-5. One of the things I tell residents in Burien and SeaTac and Des Moines, which is where I live, the area where I live as well, is the routes that you have locally to access I-5 don't go away, don't change, aren't tolled. This expressway provides a great reliable regional trip, and if you're during peak periods when things are highly congested in other locations, it might provide you a more efficient trip, but you still have those existing free routes available to you that exist today.
Thank you, John. Okay, next is based on latest traffic estimates, how long would it take for the proposed toll rates to add up to the 180 million funding by toll indicated at the beginning of the presentation?
Or would it be best for somebody from the traffic and revenue team to talk about
Sure,
the
I
horizon
could speak to that, but I believe we
You
have
want to speak
Brent
to that?
on there, available to speak to that if he's online.
Good evening. Brent Baker, Poland Financial Planning Lead for the Gateway Program. So this is, I think, perhaps a more complex question than it might appear on the surface. We are borrowing money against future toll revenues to provide upfront capital funding of at least 180 million for the construction of the program. That those funds would then be paid back over time out of net toll revenues. We'd be issuing bonds that we'd pay those bonds back over time. That could be a 25 to 30 year repayment window. If we're just looking at how fast could we generate net revenues from tolling, when would the number of tolls collected sort of add up to that amount? We'd probably reach that by sometime in the early 2030s, maybe 2032 or 33. But that is not how we need the money. We need the money up front to pay for construction, and then those tolls are used to repay the bonds as well as provide for other reserves for capital repair and replacement. So that's pretty much a summary of that.
Thanks, Brent.
Thank you, Brent. Okay, next, how
Wait,
would
Ed,
you?
Oh, sorry. Ed, did you have something to?
Yes, thank you, John. Hello, everyone. Ed Berry, Toll Division Director here at Washington. I also wanted to add on to what Brent was saying, that it's also been directed to the program of the state that tolls will also pay for maintenance and operation of the facility and also preservation of the facility as well. So tolls are intended to pay for not only the capital costs that Brent speaks to, but the long-term maintenance and preservation of the facility as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Okay, next is how would you identify low-income drivers in the system?
Sure, I could take that one, Vice Chair Basucci. This will need to be the Commission and WashDOT and the Department of Transportation will be working on developing the low-income program if that is the direction that is taken, particularly for a system-wide one. But either approach, where you would be working with the proposal, the consideration is to work with, for example, the Department of Social and Health Services, and through who also currently manages the systems, the recipients for low-income programs in the state. So, for example, if there's an individual who is at 200% of the federal poverty level, kind of the basis for eligibility for many of the assistance programs in the state, the Department of Transportation could work with Department of Social and Health Services to identify them as being qualified and therefore also qualified for a low-income program here for tolling. Whether that includes the geographic approach, being within the 1 mile of the corridor, or whether that's system-wide. Either way, working with the Department of Social Health Services to help determine eligibility around that 200% of the federal poverty level would be an approach that's under consideration now.
Thank you, Carl. Next, how are you working with other cities like ours to make sure our voices are reflected in the tolling policy?
Sure, and I appreciate, I believe this question's from Councilmember Vincent from CTAC, and I appreciate your participation here today. The commission has worked regularly to provide updates to both the executive and steering committees that the Gateway program has had in place for throughout the project development. So that's been an important element for us to connect with our local elected officials, as well as connecting with the members of the House and Senate Transportation Committees on a regular basis around updates on the development of these toll rates. In addition, we've ensured that these public input meetings and other opportunities continue to be available and made accessible and aware for both the public as well as our valued stakeholders and partners in the region. So we continue to have this conversation and welcome additional conversation around the rates and policies you see here today.
Thank you. Next is why charge low-income individuals at all? Then by definition, have low income. This makes lanes a have or versus have-nots. It's a good question. Yeah, Carl, if you want to weigh in. I mean, first of all, we haven't even decided yet if we're doing a low income. So, I think that might be cart before the horse, but I can understand the question. So if you have something to say, Carl, please.
Well, at one level, the commission is looking at the opportunity, the possibility of providing a low income discount, recognizing that, especially as we have additional toll facilities coming forward, that tolling can be a burden on low income individuals in this region, not just those specific to nearby the expressway. So that's certainly one challenge, but throughout the region. On the other hand, there is the need to provide for the revenues necessary and to manage the traffic on the facilities, and providing for a free rate would have consequences on potentially the overall toll rates that everyone is paying on the facility, and potentially impact those traffic. So as staff, when we present this to commissioners, it's providing that opportunity to understand the trade-offs of providing a discount. An exemption is one step further, certainly, and there's value to that from a perspective of supporting low-income individuals, but providing the trade-offs that are present in consideration of all users in the facility.
Thank you, Carl. Will the private sector be providing the 155 million to complete the project? If so, what compromises have been made to obtain that supplemental revenue?
Carl, would you like me to take a shot at that? The funding needs to complete the program have been communicated from WashDOT to both the governor's office as well as the legislature, and ultimately it's at their discretion how and when to address those funding needs. I think as we've communicated here today, one option on the table for consideration is utilizing some of the additional toll funding that the legislature authorized previously in 2019. But there are other state and federal sources available to them as well. So I'm not sure, about the private sector part of it, other than the $155 million is needed, at least primarily to support, private industry with contracts with contractors to deliver our projects. And the funding needs are reflective of just, kind of the ongoing state of the construction market and higher than historical pricing that we keep seeing.
Okay, next we have two questions. They're both the same vein, so I'm just going to ask one here. It says, what are the qualifications and how will people know if they're eligible for a low-income program?
I would say that we've looked at household income for consideration of the 200% of the federal poverty level. But I'd really want to defer that to further development. We need to really work with the Department of Social Health Services, for example, if we're working with them collectively as a state to identify eligibility and enrollment. And so before necessarily I speak to specifics on how that eligibility and enrollment process would take place, I'd want to, I think we need to get into the implementation phase and work through that process with Department of Transportation and our partners to come up with an approach that's going to be viable for these our toll facilities here in the state.
Thank you, Carl.
Mhm.
Okay, given that toll roads are highly subject to the amount of traffic, how does toll revenue remain viable during low traffic periods such as that we experienced during COVID or the upcoming measles outbreak in Texas due to the lack of vaccination?
Sure, and I can touch on this. This is a process that we work through closely, not just with the Washington Department of Transportation, but with our partners at the Office of the State Treasurer's Office, particularly for a facility that is going to have bonding. We need to ensure that we have a couple of things in place. One, are we meeting annual fiscal financial requirements? That's a definition that's provided to us from the State Treasurer's Office, and includes ensuring that we have enough to cover expected expenses each year throughout when those bonds are expected to be repaid. Second, ensuring that we have reserve funds in place to ensure that we're putting money aside for when both large expenses are expected to come up, so we're not paying for those expenses all in one year, but also in case there is economic downturn, or for example, given in the comments, measles outbreak in Texas. Certainly we had some of that experience with COVID, and the reserve funds that were in place certainly helped to address the needs of facilities when that was the case. So that is an active part of how we set toll rates, and we'll continue to monitor as we move forward with rates on these facilities.
Thank you, Carl. Where could we find the breakdown of all the expenses for the tolls? I'm sure everyone here would like to see why the tolls are being increased, where all the money is going. WashDOT?
I can take that one, Vice Chair Rasucci. We publish an annual report every year that is on our website that gives a detailed breakdown for all of our toll facilities on where the revenue goes and what it's paying for on each facility. And also we publish financial statements as well, where it gives very detailed information on where the revenue goes, what it pays for, capital outlays. So on the WashDOT website, under tolling, that information is there.
Okay. Moving on. Why aren't you allowing people to get off on 24th before getting onto I-5 for Des Moines residents?
Vice Chair, maybe I could take that one.
Great, John.
So I think one of the things that, similar to what I said before, probably it's maybe a good reminder here, is that for local residents in and around the 509 corridor, the routes that are available to you today are still available to you untolled. One of the differences here with these gateway corridors from other tolled corridors, where you're expanding existing corridors and then tolling them, is these segments that we're tolling don't exist today. So people coming down the 509 freeway, the freeway ends at South 188th today, and traffic that goes down to 188th gets off there, and they either head towards SeaTac in Des Moines or head over towards Burien and Normandy Park and other places to the south on what I call local, a state highway in a local jurisdiction. It's not a freeway. It's a local, it's more of an arterial setting. So if we were to not toll that first mile of the new expressway to 24th, 28th Street, you would overburden that section with traffic and load, a phenomenal number of vehicles onto 24th, 28th Street. That it's not designed for, as well as our new expressway, is not designed for. So again, keep in mind here, the goal here is to provide a 4-lane expressway that provides people a much more reliable and efficient trip, especially during the peak periods and the periods right around the peaks, where some of these local roadways and local state highways are heavily burdened and congested. So I think if we were to not toll that segment, people would not be able to rely on the trip down this corridor to and from I-5 to the existing part of 509 that's not tolled. And the goal is to have people a reliable trip.
Thank you, John. Next, any possibility of making the twilight hours, e.g. 12 to 3 a.m. free while increasing prices for peak hours? Carl, you want to handle that?
It's certainly an option that the commission could consider in future rate settings. At this point, the direction we've received so far from commissioners is to approach it as having tolling in place throughout the day in order to support two things. One, it creates an opportunity to manage that facility and ensure that users of the facility throughout the day are contributing to the revenues needed to support meet the financial needs of the facility. Two, it also minimizes to some degree the amount of the rates that would need to be in place if we were not charging for other times of the day, if we were not charging at those hours. Second, the commission's also, does not want to necessarily charge rates that are over and above what is necessary during peak hours. Certainly be supportive of traffic management, but leave opportunities in the future if more traffic management is needed that's when they would seek to more increase those rates in a way that might be above and beyond the escalation that we have assumed so far for these facilities. So a couple of reasons, a couple points of consideration that the commission would have in mind.
Thank you, Carl. We have two that are kind of on the same vein, so I'm going to go in and ask one here. How will you mitigate the potential for traffic off of exit 188 to grow exponentially due to the people not wanting to pay the toll? So basically, toll dodgers.
Yeah. Thanks, Vice Chair. This one is similar to a previous question in that the existing 509 freeway ends at South 188th Street today. So traffic heading to the south has to exit off of the freeway at 188th and then choose which direction they head from there, east or west. That doesn't change here. I think our traffic modeling doesn't show that there's an exponential increase in the traffic getting off there. And what additional traffic we do show, we are making some improvements on South 188th Street to more efficiently both distribute traffic to South 188th Street, which is a 4-lane corridor itself. So our modeling and analysis shows that it has the capacity, especially with the improvements we're making at the connections to South 188th, to handle the traffic under with this new expressway extension.
Thank you, John. Okay, is there a plan to reduce tolls once money has been paid back to the account for maintenance?
I can speak to that. I would say that in the future, as toll rate financial obligations are reduced, that would be an opportunity for the commission to assess those toll rates and identify whether that is an opportunity to reduce toll rates accordingly. So that's, 30, 35 years down the road. So I can't speak for our current commissioners, much less our future commissioners. But certainly it's anticipated that these toll rates are meant to align with financial obligations, as well as traffic needs on the facility. So certainly an opportunity to reduce it when those obligations are gone. Some other considerations might be whether or not what would be the level of toll rates that could support managing traffic on those facilities at that point in time in the future. But certainly that's an opportunity and would be an active consideration if when that time comes.
Thank you, Carl. Looking through them here. Hold on a sec. Okay, so Councilmember Vincent, I get that these new roads don't exist yet, and that's why they're being told. But for Uber and delivery drivers in SeaTac, these might be the best or only way to get around. Will there be any help for people who drive for work now have to pay these tolls every day?
Well, I can speak to one portion of that at least. One element of the consideration of a low income program certainly could be that those who are driving for a living may qualify as individuals who are low income as well. So it's a potential that might provide for a break for some of those individuals. Otherwise, certainly being able to use the toll facility while a cost, if it's providing for providing for a faster trip, may also provide more opportunity for those Uber and Lyft drivers to provide more trips. So I can't speak to a specific discount that's being considered for such drivers, but there are some trade-offs that might be in opportunities and trade-offs that might present itself for those drivers as this goes forward. I don't know if anyone else wants to add to that.
Any other comments on that? Okay, thank you, Carl. Okay, last question I have is, are these toll road plans planned to occur regardless of this forum, or are you all willing to consider alternative options to relieve traffic? So Carl, I'll go ahead and let you explain why we have to do this, I think, in law, so people understand that. And know that we want to hear from everyone here, and we appreciate all your comments. And commissioners have not made a decision yet, and we'll leave it at that.
Tolling itself is a piece of this program and these projects that has been directed by the legislature. And so planning has been done accordingly by White WashDOT, both on the design and the financial elements that John White has spoken to. And with that, as authorized by the legislature, the commission has moved forward with their work to set the toll rates accordingly. That's not to say there's not other considerations. Certainly how the rates are set and which policies are taken into effect is in the purview of the commission, and the legislature working with WashDOT could certainly choose to identify other opportunities for funding. Certainly John White identified on the funding chart the various ways in which funding is being made to support this program. And working from a regional perspective, opportunities to alleviate traffic. Again, our regional partners can speak to that much better than I can in terms of what opportunities exist or may be benefited by these facilities, and what opportunities may be in the future for furthering that work.
Thank you, Carl. I think, Kim, do we have anyone signed up for comment via Zoom?
Yes, Vice Chair, we so far have one person who has expressed a desire to provide comment.
Okay, are they joining by phone? Do you know?
Nope. They are via Zoom, and I've just promoted Lang Reynolds.
Hi, Lang. Can we Can you hear us, Lang? I don't see anyone, Kim. Oh, here we, well, there's a 3-minute timer. Yeah, I don't see them yet. Lang, if you can hear us, please turn on your camera and your microphone.
Maybe just a reminder that if anyone would like to provide comment, you can put your name in the Q&A box.
Please do. Yes. No, I'm not seeing anybody. Okay. Do we have anyone else, Kim?
Not as of right now. It looks like Lang dropped off after I promoted them.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't see anyone else, and I don't see any other questions. I'll give it a few more minutes here, and then we're going to close the public comment. Okay. Oh, another question in the Q&A. Will the existing traffic on 509 be diverted while construction is taking place?
Vice Chair, I could probably take this one.
Please, John.
So our contractor on 509 has worked really hard to develop maintenance of traffic plans that maintain all of the existing capacity and connections. So at this point, construction traffic impacts on related to completing 509 are mostly behind us, the big ones, and those are mostly on I-5 and the closures in the lane, reductions and things that we've had happen on to build our infrastructure on I-5 to channel traffic to and from 509. So at this point, it's mostly localized traffic impacts at, say, 168th and Burien that's happening right now, and South 28th and SeaTac. But all of the connections that people have today will be maintained, minus maybe what I call short-term, night closures, things like that.
Okay. Okay, last call. Any other questions or any other public comment? Hearing, seeing none, I'll go ahead and close the public comment. Madam Chair, I'll hand the meeting back to you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Restucci. I'd like to offer special thanks to the tolling committee. I know that you did a lot of work reviewing all these options to bring them forward tonight. And there were a lot of questions, so thanks for being here to answer those questions. Do any commissioners have any comments they'd like to make tonight before we close the meeting?
Just a
Okay.
reminder, Madam Chair, that tomorrow from 12 to 1, we have another meeting just like this one.
Well, do you want-
Excellent. Commissioner Batra, you have some comments?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to make one comment. One of the last question came up, that will the tolls be used on the corridor regardless of what the comments are, people making, whether they should be tolls or not. I just want to mention something that I participated on behalf of the commission to all the executive committee meetings during the process for the last 3-4 years. in which all the stakeholders and all the cities raised a lot of money to come up with over $100 million to move this project forward. And that was tax money, that was public money. And to me, it seems obvious that all the stakeholders, all the cities who are participating on this particular program are interested in building this corridor. So therefore, we feel obligated to listen to the public, listen to the stakeholders, cities, leaders, and legislators to raise enough fund so that these projects can be complete. So I just want to highlight that this is what the situation is in terms of what, as commissioners, we ought to do is to listen to the voice of the leaders, the public, and the legislators to make sure this is a very needed project that need to be completed and got to be done, and that's what we have to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Batra. Commissioner Jennings?
Yeah, just to piggyback off Commissioner Batra, I was glad to hear from the public what they were saying. They came and brought a lot of good questions, a lot of thoughtful questions. And for me, a lot of thinking has to go in to whatever they asked and the answers that were given as we go forward. So I just wanted to thank the public for coming tonight and asking the questions. Some were harder than others, but thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Carl, would you like to make some comments? Oh, you're muted.
I just want to make sure we touch on a final slide after any additional commissioner comments before we close out the meeting. That will just sum up our next steps. So wanted to flag that. That's all.
Great. So we'll hand it back to you in just a minute. So again, thank you, Commissioner Restucci, for reminding everyone there's another meeting tomorrow, just like this one, at noon from 12 to 1, and another chance to provide public comment. And there were a lot of questions tonight about the low income tolling program. I just wanted to say, excuse me, but the commission has been considering a low income program for some time, and they've been studying it, and we still have a lot of work to do on it, but we are taking it seriously and trying to move ahead with what we think is the best way to implement it, not just for this facility, but for all the facilities in the state. So Carl, you want to close us out by telling us the next steps?
Sure. Thank you, Chair. Appreciate that. This slide just speaks to our current and next steps. As noted earlier today in this presentation, we do have the online open house still available on the Commission's website, and that will be available through Sunday, April 6th. As noted, we do have the virtual public input meeting coming up tomorrow. I'll note that's from 12 to 1:30. And then coming up on April 16th at our April Commission meeting, which will be located at Bellevue City Hall, we will, or I should say, you commissioners will be selecting one preferred toll rate option, so a combination of the policies and the rates to move forward for final consideration. That will be that option that you advance will then be available for public comment, concluding with a final public hearing for adoption of those rates and policies at our June commission meeting between June 17th and 18th. We're still finalizing the date of that hearing between those two dates. And then this will support the toll rates and policies taking effect beginning in October of 2025. So my thanks to the public for coming forward, and for each of you commissioners for your time tonight, and as well for your commitment to tomorrow as well. Really appreciate your engagement on this rate setting.
Thank you, Carl.
Thank you, Carl. And so we will have another meeting tomorrow, and then we will take this up for further consideration at our April meeting in Bellevue. And with that, This virtual public hearing on the SR 509 and 167 expressways, new expressways, is now closed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
See everyone tomorrow.
Bye, everybody.
Night.
Night.